thank you everyone for joining this afternoon or this morning, depending on whereabouts you're located in the world. So look, Digital Mine, our vision is to be a recognized leader and trusted partner to our customers in safety and productivity technology solutions to enable more sustainable operations. We create solutions that connect people, processes, equipment, technology to improve safety, recovery, and productivity across our customers' value chain. Our portfolio offers what we consider to be the best-in-class solutions when it comes to collision avoidance, drill guidance systems and comms, asset performance management, and operations performance management. And this is underpinned by decades of experience and deep domain expertise in the mining and metals industry. Lastly, we consider ourselves to be experts when it comes to delivery, and we really pride ourselves in the strength of our open innovation partner ecosystem. We're a global business with people working in all of the world's major mining hubs. We have millions of hours of successful operations and many, many successes. Before I sort of allow the team to take over, I want to say a big thank you in advance to Michael from Vedanta for joining us today and taking us through his experience. And obviously I want to thank the Wabtec team for taking you through the content within the slides today. I hope you enjoy what we're about to take you through. And I'm looking forward to taking some questions towards the end. Thanks, Paula.
Thank you. Thank you, Mitch. Morning, everybody that's joined us on the call, and hopefully a few more people have joined us now. We will, over the course of the next hour, be running through a series, and you would have seen the agenda, a series of slides just talking through a little bit about our digital roadmap, the value driver analytics, and control loop performance management. Once we have finished with a discussion with Michael October, who's joined us this morning, we will pause for 3 minutes to run a short survey, which I encourage you all to complete. The short survey is going to be a short questionnaire, just asking a few questions around sort of digital roadmap readiness, because at the end of this, or during the course of the next week, we would be selecting one of you that's joined today for your business to be eligible for a complimentary digital roadmap exercise, which involves a 2-day workshop taking you through the steps that we go through, which is on the screen here, which is systems thinking based, really a step-by-step exercise to understand your as is state, to be state, opportunities for improvement, and lastly, really, what are the steps to get you to what we've defined with you as success and the digital roadmap pathway to get there. So it's an exercise that we've gone through for a number of our clients recently, and really it's an excellent way of unpacking what is your low-hanging fruit, where do you want to be, and what is the pathway to get to the ultimate goal through the digital transformation process. As I mentioned, we do this in a systems thinking approach, which is done through starting with a systems or an ideation workshop, which is depending on the scope, a 2-day workshop, really unpacking your objectives, some of the blockers, challenges, goals as a team, where you want to be, some of the in-flight programs that you're running, what is the digital maturity status within your business, and how you can transform that. And we'll come out with a series of tasks, objectives, programs, projects, how that could contribute to ultimately to your business. And we would help with identifying what some of those priorities are, what some of the stepping stones are, what are the foundation layers that need to be in place in order to build on that through a transformation program. And this has been done with quite a lot of success in some of our clients that we've helped. So I encourage you all to complete the survey when we get there at the end of this next section. Thank you. Isak?
Thank you, Paula. Just request control here. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone who's joined. Today I'll be sharing with you a use case on a project that we did in collaboration with Vedanta Zinc. So in a lot of organizations today, data has become an overhead cost. And I think the question we need to ask ourselves is what is our data really worth? So at Vedanta Gamsberg operation, from conception to commissioning, Vedanta's vision for Gamsberg was for it to become a data-driven organization. Soon after the plant was commissioned, the processing plant, Wabtec, was contracted to make the vast amount of data visible, but also at the same time derive value from their data. So there was a need to not only identify problems, but also to get to the root cause using data. And this is how our value driver analytics offering was born. This project was executed in 4 phases, starting with ideation and then followed by data definition and conceptualization, agile development, and deployment. And I'll take you through the stages of the project. So the first, So the first step in creating visibility was to get an understanding of the key value drivers for each of the sections in the Gamsberg operation. So Gary Lane and his team from Simine and Vuma played a key role in facilitating workshops on site, and they also did a mining simulation that demonstrated how our systems thinking approach could be applied to improve the flow throughout the mining value chain. From these workshops, we derived key value driver trees, or value driver trees were developed, and the key levers that could be pulled to improve these KPIs were identified, as well as the underlying data. The next step was to get an understanding of the key functionalities that was desired by users and the key visualizations that was needed and how it could be used on a daily basis. Paula, sorry, I wonder if I could ask you to drive the presentation. I see there's a big lag if I drive it, so I'll just give you an indication of when to move to the next slide.
Sure.
If you can go back to phase 2, that slide.
There we go.
Great stuff. Yeah. So during this phase, we thought about what functionalities the users needed and how they would use the dashboards and the visualizations on a daily basis. And after we did that, we looked at what was the data in the background that would drive these KPI calculations, as well as the supporting data for dashboards like control charts and so forth. Thanks, Paula. You can move on to the next one. Moving into agile development, we opted to go for 2-week sprints where we did development, got feedback from the users after each of the 2-week sprints. And this also helped with acceptance testing at the end of the project, as users knew early on what the final product would look like. The tools used was GE's Prophecy C-Sense application for the KPI calculations in the background, as well as Microsoft Power BI tool for the visualizations. Data validation and acceptance testing was also done to ensure that whatever the data the users were looking at could be trusted. Thanks, Paula. Then we can move on to the next one. So the final product delivered to Vedanta was real-time dashboards across the mining value chain or across the processing value chain. And this allowed them to have visibility from a high level value stream map to a control chart level where they had the ability to troubleshoot production issues with 3 clicks. Data cleaning and quality checks is also being done in real time. So this allows the users to trust the data whenever they're looking at a dashboard. Thanks, Paula. Then we can move on to the next one. So next, I'll take you through a small demonstration in terms of how the dashboards are used. So you'll see there's 3 levels of dashboards here, starting out with a value stream map, followed by a value driver tree, and then moving down to a control chart level. Thanks, Paula. You can move on to the next one. So starting off with a value stream map in this specific scenario, we can see that on this specific day, we were not able to achieve the milling tons throughput. And what the dashboard also allows is for you to have dynamic visibility on historical data as well. So if you move the slider at the bottom of that screen, you can have visibility on data from yesterday or a couple of days before, or on a number of days. So it automatically aggregates the data for you. Thanks, Paula. We can move on to the next one. So from there, you have the ability to click right through to a value driver tree. And what the value driver tree allows you to see is how KPIs are interdependent on one another. So on this specific scenario, we can see that the KPI on the right-hand side, direct operating hours, was the main contributor to us not achieving the mill tons for this specific day. Thanks, Paula. And then we can move on to the last one. And then moving on to a control chart level, this is where we have the ability to identify what the root cause of us not achieving the direct operating hours for this specific day was. And from the supporting data, we can see that the availability for this specific scenario was only 74%. So that most likely is an indication that the availability of the equipment was the contributing factor to us not achieving the main KPIs, which was mill tons for the specific day. Thanks, Paula. Yeah, and I think what we're showing here is just some analysis we did afterwards to demonstrate what was the value that we saw from the dashboards that was deployed at Vedanta, Gamsberg operation, and we saw similar trends for all of the main KPIs. So the visualizations allows you to identify bottlenecks within your process and then focus your attention on that. So although the visualizations might not be the main contributing factor to these improvements, it does allow you to identify where there are problems and then focus your attention on these problems. So the idea is to make data a strategic asset within your organization. Thanks, Paula. Yeah, and here's some feedback we got from the people on site. So next time I'm going to ask Michael October to just introduce himself, and I'm going to run through a couple of questions with Michael on the value that we've seen at Gamsberg operation. Michael.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, depending on time zones. My name is Michael October. I'm head of technical here at Gamsberg plant. Been with the operation for better part of 15 years in various roles. Most recently, I joined the Gamsberg operation about 18 months ago, and when I was introduced to a lot of these technologies. Okay, so that's a bit about me.
Thanks, Michael. So Michael, how are the value driver trees or the VDA dashboards being used on a daily basis at Gamsberg?
Well, just stepping back, one of the key things that was part of the intent and design for Gamsberg, as mentioned earlier, was we really want to be able to make fast, crisp decisions based off production data very quickly. So we have redesigned ourselves around using the platform and everybody looking at the data, everybody getting the same version of the truth, to put it that way, to very quickly be able to summarize the performance on the previous day, look at what is for hotspots, and then being able to address those hotspots very quickly. So on a day-to-day basis, our morning meeting is being run off. Everybody looking at the data from the platform. Beyond that, we can then on a weekly basis do a week review or a 3-day review or 4-day review, looking at a higher level of performance, and also then using the data to support our original thinkings or indicate where we have made errors in judgment or mechanical issues or whatever the case may be. So being able to fast track our analytics and response time. So that's to summarize probably where we use it most.
Thanks, Michael. And from your feedback, it seems like it's not just certain stakeholders that uses the dashboard, but across the organization. So who uses the dashboards at Vedanta, Michael?
So these dashboards are, well, being used in various forms. So as indicated, it forms part of our production meetings, which is both the engineering and the production people, the processing people, looking at the data. But also it's one of those tools that I can quickly use for when people come to the plant, to give them a snapshot view of Gamsberg plant, its operating, its performance, and quickly be able to summarize what is happening in the plant. So anything from process engineers, maintenance engineers, visiting people, we can utilize the boards. We've got various reports and functions set up that even the finance guys are also part of putting some of our day-to-day reports on the system.
Thanks, Michael. So, Michael, has the value driver trees or the dashboards improved the way you understand operational issues?
Yeah, it has, and I think what it also does, it's not just the understanding, but also the crystallization, that we can quickly zoom into, 5 things may have gone wrong or 10 things may have gone wrong, but which ones are the critical items to focus on. So it's the understanding of the business, but it's also how the different parameters of a business influence upwards.
And what insights do you have now, which you did not have before the deployment of these dashboards?
Well, it's like I said, the Gamsberg plant has by design been, this is what we want to set out to do. All right. So if I compare it to other plants that I've run before, it's one of those things where it's very good that I can come in early in the morning, have a quick view on what's happening. So just to have a very crisp snapshot of a previous day, or alternatively want to monitor how certain aspects of the plant is running, where we do have problems and guys are looking at resolving issues. Are we gaining? So you can do a bit of deep dive. So from a just your original thinking of what has gone wrong, and when you're doing a bit of deep dive and then saying, hold on, but if I start pulling the trends together and I start looking at different aspects, in one go, my original thinking and the actual root cause may be slightly different.
So are you thus finding your operational management more proactive as a result of these dashboards?
Definitely. You can start seeing where trends are starting to form. All right. So there's still and I think there's still a lot of maturity and growth to do for us as a business. And depends on how what we've also done is we've given assignments to certain people to respond to issues, and we've given assignment to certain people to monitor and control. So those who's doing the monitoring and controlling, they can quickly start seeing, hold on, this is going out of bound, and start communicating. So there's a tool itself, but there's also how we structured ourselves around it to be able to respond faster.
Thank you very much for the feedback, Michael. I think it's always valuable to hear the voice of the customer on projects like this. So Paula, that concludes my feedback. You're welcome to take over again.
Thank you. Thanks so much. There is a question that's come through. Perhaps we can take that question I see in the Q&A section before we, because I think it is for Michael, which is, how long has your journey to adopt the digitalized platforms been? Michael, perhaps we can take that question.
Well, how long have we been running at Gamsberg? It's about 2 years, to be honest. Like I said, but it actually started before that. When we started designing the plant, when we started looking at the plant, our goal was that we're going to have the most automated plant, and going to be a data-driven organization. All right. So it was a DNA issue for us, right? And hence, even that journey is not finished. It's taken us for a better part of 2 years to be able to be where we are, and we are still evolving as we're going along. There is still some tweaks and some changes which we are making. So it's not you decided today and tomorrow it's going to be there, or 2 months from today it's going to be there. It takes effort, it takes work, but it's one of those things that you decide this is how it's going to be, and this is what I'm going to set up to do, and hence I do the investment for that.
Thank you, Michael. There was one other question that came through. If we could perhaps take that question as well. I see we're in good time. So, which was, the Wabtec process has largely helped with the plant. Is there an area, has the process helped at all with mining out at Gamsberg?
Well, as you've indicated, Wabtec is looking mostly at the plant, and we're also looking at how we integrate other aspects of data sources. And the nice thing of how we set the Wabtec up is it's part of our business intelligence center, to put it that way. It all feeds up to a information platform where we can then pull different data sources together with the Wabtec technology to have a broader view of what's happening at mining and what's happening around the areas. So from that perspective, having a broader view of just the plant is possible, and that's what we set out to do, and that's what we have been able to get right in some form or the other.
Thank you, Michael. Just going to check that we've answered all the questions. And I think to just close off that question, the Wabtec team is able to cover any aspect of the mining value chain. It depends on the scope of the customer. Waleed asked, do you need a huge IT infrastructure, Michael?
Well, you know, to be honest, you know, that's a today's IT infrastructure in today's world is, you have to invest in it. You have to put up for it, and you need the services for it. And like I said, this is an evolution where after we started looking at it, we had to start looking at our space, our data areas, our response time. we've evolved where it's not just on-site, but also going into cloud type of things. And the cloud options is making your installed infrastructure options actually also less, to put it that way. So it also depends on how you want to deploy it, whether you want to maintain it local and we want to do cloud-based. And I think it's going to be a solution specific to the customer and the customer demands, to put it really that way.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, Paula, if I can maybe just add on to that, I think what Vedanta has done well is they've really closed the gap between IT and OT. So I think those two organizations are very well integrated, and that also helped a lot in making this project a success.
Thanks, Isak. Gugu, can we please share the link to the survey in the chat? We will, as soon as it comes in, we will ask you each to go to the chat. I'm just looking to see as it comes in.
I will share it now, Paula.
Thank you. And we ask that you take, as soon as it comes in, we'll start a timer and we ask that you take 3 minutes to complete it. There you go. It's just a Google Doc. You can hopefully see that in the chat. If you can click on that, please. It's a few, probably less than 10, multiple questions. It also asks for your details at the start, please, obviously, so that we can come back to you. And if you can complete the questions, I'll start the timer now. If anyone's got any issues accessing the form, if you can just post a note in the chat and we can help you. Thank you. We'll now be moving on to the next section. And Francis Rousseau will be talking to us a little bit about control loop performance management.
Thank you, Paula. My name is Francis Rousseau. So I'm also at Wabtec. I'm the engineer in charge of our monitoring services at Wabtec. And control loop performance management is a specific passion of mine. I've been helping customers with my team to solve a lot of their control loop issues over, I would say, about 15 to 20 years now. And Wabtec, or the team at Wabtec, the Digital Mind team, has been doing this for even longer. We have had many customers where we help them with optimizing their base layer control. So when we're talking about control loops, we're referring to PID controllers in this sense. And the reason why we are talking about this today, just to link it up with what Isak and Michael's been talking about, you know, if you look at the value driver analytics, looking at causes essentially of suboptimal, sub-target performance, they can be broadly, it can be categorized, I would say, in three main categories. It could either be your equipment that's leading to not reaching your targets, the process, or the control layer, just as three broad categories. And with the technology that we have nowadays, it's becoming more and more easy to not just give data, but also information and use analytics to give root causes of suboptimal performance. So the next phase of a value driver analytics project would be to plug in your root cause analytics into the value driver tree. So when you see that there's suboptimal performance, you would also see the result of your analytics giving you diagnostics, not just information. And one of those possible analytics that we have at Wabtec is on control loop performance management. So there you can also then have in your value driver tree, you can have the diagnostics come in of the loops that could have an effect on those KPIs that you're looking at. So that would depend on the flow sheet, but that would all be configurable. So we can, maybe in other webinars, we will look at the asset analytics we have and process analytics that we have, as well as our ecosystem partners. All of that can be plugged into your main visualization dashboards. But today, due to time, just to focus on control loops. And our solution, so analytics, also services, big portion of it, looking at the problems to automatically detect problems with your PID control loops. Next slide. Now, the value of looking at the control loops. For me, this is the lowest hanging fruit that you can have if you look at root causes of poor performance and the biggest possible benefits. You would also hear people, you know, that's famous in the control, PID control loop space, like Michael Brown, tell you that, you know, when he goes to plants, often you would see on average 80% of PID loops being in manual, not even working. So it's often an area that doesn't even have visibility. People look at optimizing a process, but they cannot control the process to the targets that they're setting, the set points. The variation around those set points are so big that it doesn't then actually benefit you that much to try and optimize the set points or try and improve your process. So a very crucial part, low-hanging fruit that's quite easy to actually optimize. It's just the area that's in a silo. It's not always integrated that well with the process teams. And then a lot of the issues go undetected. So with our solution, you would be able to detect that variation, see which loops are causing it, help to see what are the problems with the loops, diagnose the issues, and also especially prioritize them. That's the big thing to me, is a lot of plants have got hundreds, if not thousands, of control loops. So the automation guys or CNI, they don't have a choice but to wait for operators or process engineers to tell them they think they have an issue with a control loop. But it's difficult for them. They can't go and fix or investigate every single loop every day, or every single problem that's being brought to them. But with the right analytics, they can prioritize and see, okay, which plants, which loops should they work on that would have the most value. And that's the most important part to me. And then the kind of benefits that you can achieve, as you see there on the bottom right, controller error, that would be linked also to that variability. So error would be the process variable, how far it is from the set point, but then the variability as well. And then just automatic, again, moving to auto mode, making sure that loops are tuned, that they are working in automatic mode. Operators are not switching them to manual because they're actually not tuned properly. And then that ultimately has a huge effect on production. It's often, again, for me, working in this space, I'm quite passionate about it. I've seen so many times how few simple PID loops, fixing them leads to a massive production benefit. Next slide. And for the Wabtec, looking at the whole control loop performance package that we do, software, services, this is the full process. Now, if we have, I'll go through the steps now, but if we have a customer that we've been working with before and we've already done, like Paula's mentioned about the workshops, the ideation workshops, we know what the issues are, it's a little bit different. This would be a new customer where we want to move step by step, starting with the discovery value assessment there at the top. That would be looking at all the possible opportunities, want to estimate benefits, make sure that we want to know what the baseline is that we're starting from before we start the project, seeing where the biggest problem areas are and what the scope is, what the state of the control loops are. And then the process stabilization, that's the second point. That's also, I would say, optional, but it's highly recommended to do an initial plant-wide control loop tuning campaign. Especially if the control loops have been neglected or not that visible for a long time, and a lot of loops need tuning, it would be better to do that first before starting the monitoring. The monitoring is a continuous improvement process, making small incremental improvements all the time. But to start it off with a big improvement to set a better baseline is highly recommended. And then the continuous monitoring, that's what my team and I do. We've got a very frequent, like a weekly rhythm with site, where we supply a report with very specific, actionable diagnostics and insights on the control loop. So we would have subject matter experts in areas of control, process engineering, data science, where we can drill into the data a bit deeper, come up with very pinpointed recommendations. Okay, we think that this sensor is malfunctioning. Go and check that sensor. That's why the control loop's not working, for instance. And we also have the analytics. We use GEC Sense software for that, the control loop performance management package. And that helps us as well to prioritize. Again, hundreds of loops, thousands of loops, need to prioritize which ones to look at. So that's the software part of it. And then moving on to the next one is the benefits. There we it's very important, of course. Nowadays, nobody can spend money without justifying, without showing benefits. So for every case that we solve, and a case would be like an improvement opportunity, there's a loop with a problem, it can be improved. And then when a corrective action is taken and it has improved, it's important for us, we always try and quantify that benefit in terms of process KPIs, even monetary value if possible. Also, digital enablement, that's a very big buzzword nowadays. And what we found through the monitoring process is that that's the added benefit of having a monitoring team, is because we are all software experts on the Wabtec side. We are used to using data analytics tools to do analysis, for instance, using these control loop analytics, for instance. And through having the interactions with site, we also incorporate the coaching aspect, training aspect to it, to show how we arrived at our conclusions, help share our knowledge of how to use the tools. Ultimately, then also educating our customers on use of software tools. So that's an important part of it as well. And lastly, sometimes we include looking at the process, doing some ad hoc studies. There could be bigger systemic process issues that hasn't got to do with individual PID loops, but the set points of a group of PID loops, for instance. And then there's a bigger process troubleshooting aspect that we can also do as an add-on. And we can come to conclusions and share our conclusions of sites on how to improve the process as a whole. Next slide. This is lastly, my last slide here, just to share one example of a catch. So that would be one of those loops that we found the issue and then it was corrected. So just to tell you the story so that you get an idea of how the process would work for this. This one was an increase of 4% in the cooling water flow in an oxygen plant. And ultimately, it was a pump issue that we could diagnose that led to the reduced flow. You would see on the left-hand graph, that was beforehand. So the red, the flow is the red line. It kept decreasing over time. And even though it was a simple problem, the pump output, it couldn't reach the necessary flow set point for the flow. It was one of those things that also had to do with a lot of change management. That's why I like telling the story, and that's where the monitoring service come in. When we were engaging with the customer every week, they kept telling us that they have a regular schedule to clean the pump filters, and then it does reach the set point again. So that was what their operating rhythm was. But then after a while, we realized, okay, but it's still happening too frequently. They can't keep doing this it was literally becoming every day where they had to clean it. And that's not sustainable. So after a while, in a week or two afterwards, when we saw that this frequency was recurring, we recommended that they actually look at the pump. We saw in the data that we think that there is probably a pump impeller problem or something like that. And told site to go and investigate what's happening. And again, because of the silos, the process team, they had their own idea of what to do. They did the cleaning schedule. They didn't really engage with maintenance, which is in another silo, but we kind of helped facilitate that. They spoke to them, they found out bearing problem with the pump. Replace the pump. There on the right hand side, you can see the red, the flow is now on set point all the time. The pump is at an average output of 45%, where it was frequently going at 100. So it was no wonder that that pump was not lasting very long. So that's just the story of one of the many catches that we've had at many different customers all over the world. Okay, thanks, Paula. Thank you, audience. That's it from my side.
Thank you very much to all the speakers and to the participants. We have a few minutes left, and we'd like to open it up for questions. You'll see at the bottom if there's something you want to follow up on specifically. My details and Mitch's details are at the bottom of the screen there, and I can direct you to the right people within our team to have more specific follow-up questions if it's around the mining component, the question that was asked earlier, or the value chain or control loops or value driver analytics. But perhaps I'll stop sharing and let's open up to questions. Okay, I see one question come in around the digital roadmap exercise and how long it takes to develop a roadmap. Good question. So typically when we do the digital roadmap, we would run the workshop for a couple of days and then take away all of the feedback, and typically within a week we would be able to come back with feedback and a high-level roadmap mapped out, where we would then ask for some validation and confirmation that the thinking and the timeframes were correct, and we would then publish that roadmap out. Any other questions? Nothing coming through at the moment. Whilst we wait to see if anyone's got any final questions, Mitch, Isak, are there any final messages you'd like to make to the team on the call?
Oh, look, I'll just echo my thanks to Michael for joining us today and obviously sharing his experience. These sort of things are extremely valuable in terms of the time and the experience that you share with the people that have made the time to be here today. So, I'm extremely appreciative of you sharing that. Look, thank you to the remainder of the Wabtec team. We're going to be running webinars all through the course of next year, and I think with COVID and some of the travel restrictions starting to lift over the next coming months, we're looking forward to being able to engage with our customers and our prospective customers face to face again. It's something I know that I'm personally looking forward to. So look, I would encourage anyone here that has a question that potentially that I haven't thought of whilst on the call, please feel free to reach out to myself or Paula or any of the team that have joined today. We're only too happy to help, and we're just looking forward to engaging further.
Thanks, Mitch. There was one question that came through while you were chatting, asking what platform are we using for the value driver tree analytics? Isak, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, sure, Paula. So currently we're using GE's Prophecy C-Sense analytical application to do the KPI calculations. And this basically drives the dashboards, and for Vedanta, we specifically use Power BI as our visualization platform.
Thank you. Great. Well, thank you to everybody, and we're on 9:30. So thanks to everybody that has joined the session today. We value your input, and and we will take the feedback from the surveys and be working through them. So we'll be in touch with someone that qualifies for a digital roadmap exercise for their business. Thanks again to our speakers and to Michael. And we'll close the webinar. Thank you very much.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Paula. Goodbye.
Thank you.